Welcome to Skip the Queue, a podcast for people working in or working with visitor attractions. I'm your host, Kelly Molson. Each episode, I speak with industry experts from the attractions world. In today's episode, I speak with Simon Jones, Managing Director of Digital Visitor, the UK's leading strategic digital marketing agency for travel, tourism and hospitality. In this episode, we discuss experience gifting, focusing on niche products and multiple strategies to secure revenue for Christmas. Just a heads up, we had a few tiny audio issues, but none of them take away from the invaluable advice that Simon has shared. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe on iTunes, Spotify and all the usual channels by searching Skip the Queue. Simon, welcome to the Skip the Queue podcast. It's really lovely to have you on today.
Hi Kelly, thank you very much for asking me on.
You are very welcome. And as ever, we start off with our icebreaker questions. What is your karaoke song?
Angels, Robbie Williams.
Oh, it's a classic.
It is.
Not
when I sing it though.
Okay. And what is your favourite place to visit in the UK?
Cornwall. I absolutely love the sea. You know, I've been growing up going to the beach since I was a youngster. And it's something I've always enjoyed. You know, I'll get in the water at whatever the weather, you know, how cold it is, rain, whatever. It's just brilliant. I love the waves. So can't surf. My kids surf, but I can lie on a bodyboard and hit some big waves. So from that point of view, I love it. There's a little place in North Cornwall called Trianon Bay, which is just around from Constantine Bay, which is a big surf beach. And Trianon's just kind of become my spiritual home. In fact, I should not tell you because it's not very busy and I don't want it to get really busy. But it's just stunningly beautiful and the most beautiful sunsets that you'll ever see. And we stay like a minute's walk from the beach, and you know, I'm in the water at 8:30 in the morning and probably 8:30 at night, and my wife will tell you that I just never get out of the sea. So yeah, I just love it.
Oh, that sounds like an absolutely incredible place. I don't know of it, and now everyone knows of it, so there'll all be flooding there. The closest that we've been is Watergate Bay, and which is it's similar. In the sunsets in Watergate Bay are just out of this world. I've never braced the sea there though. I've never gone in and bodyboarded there, but I quite fancy that.
Really, honestly, there's nothing more exhilarating or embracing. You know, we were down this summer, and you know, we didn't have fantastic weather, but it doesn't matter. You know, the waves were absolutely out of this world, and yeah, the beach was actually red flagged a few times because they were so big this year. But yeah, honestly, give it a go. You will not regret it. It is just my kids now are in the water for hours every day when we go down. They've just grown up with it and they just love it. My 10-year-old in particular surfs like a little demon, and you just look at it and go, how have you done that? So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you for sharing. And a would you rather question for you. Would you rather be a superhero, and if so, which, or the world's best chef?
Oh, that's a good one. Everybody loves a superhero. It would be great to be able to do that. And in terms of which one, it would probably be Superman, just because to fly would be brilliant.
That'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? What about the whole pants outside your trousers thing though?
I've done that many times, so it's kind of not new.
Okay, good. Glad that we've learned that about you today. All right. the last question on this section. So tell me something that's true that nobody else agrees with you on. What's your unpopular opinion for us?
I've got two, if that's all right. First one is
right.
The Alarm, which are my favourite band of all time, are probably the most underrated band of all time. And second one is that I don't think it's essential to do well in education to be successful.
I kind of agree with you. It depends on the path, right? Not everybody learns the same way at school. And I've often talked about this myself because I didn't go to university, chose to go and get a job. Back in the day, this was a very long time ago, it was a lot easier to get a junior designer position. And I just wanted to learn. I wanted to be hands-on. I wanted to be learning as I, working as I was learning. And it's never really done me any harm. You know, if I think about my career journey and what I've done and how I've learned and now where I am, I think that was the right decision for me.
Yeah, I'm very similar to you, Kelly. I actually left school at 16. I didn't get on with the school and education environment. nothing against it, just didn't suit me. And I went out into the working world straight away at 16. Haven't done any professional qualifications, haven't been to university. But it's all about, as you say, it's the right path for each individual. I think it's about your attitude. It's about what you want to do. It's about the desire to succeed and how you get on. So if I'm looking to recruit, I think it's probably harder these days, in all fairness to youngsters. But from my point of view, education and what people have done is not the first thing I look at. It's you read into a job application, the experience they've got, or even a covering letter sometimes is more important. Have they done that absolutely to what you're looking for? Is there enough passion and inspiration in what they're looking for? So yeah, from my point of view, obviously education is important. I'm not saying that, but I just think it is down to each person's path. They need to do what they're comfortable with and what they're good at. And if, you look back at some point in the future and go, well, maybe I should have done something different, it's not the end of the world. You can find your right way. You just need to work hard at it.
I love this, and I think I completely agree with your unpopular opinion. Whether it's unpopular or not is to be seen. But I would love to, if you're listening and you're following us on social media, I'd actually really love to know how you feel about that and what your career journeys have been like from education path as well. So pop us a little tweet over. I'd really love to hear about that. That leads us really nicely on to the things that I'd like to talk about today, Simon. So Simon and I, we met recently because we both spoke at the Visitor Attractions Conference, and we were both in your website is your brand segment. And I think one of the joint messages that we both pushed out this year is that your website has never been more important as it is right at this moment in time. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, but I'd really like to understand how your career path has developed from school and to where you are now. So if you can give us a bit of a potted history, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So when I left school, based in Bristol, and I'm from Bristol, financial services was huge in Bristol. So I basically ended up working in the financial service sector for quite a few years, and working for Sun Life as it was, and AXA. But nothing against it. It gave me great grounding, made some great friendships there. People are still in touch with now, but it didn't really inspire and wasn't anything that really thrilled me. So I wanted to move into sort of a sales line of work, but the last thing I wanted to do was financial sales, because back in those days, it didn't have a particularly good reputation, and it's not that most of interesting. So I ended up selling housewares products, of all things. I worked for a company called Brabantia, who are known for their pedal bins, bread bins, ironing tables, etc. I worked for them for a couple of years, and it was great. Absolutely brilliant products, brilliant time. Got to learn an awful lot, spent a lot of time on the road. And then I was fortunate enough randomly to end up finding a job for Merlin Entertainments, or Varden Attractions as they were back in those days. And went through an interview process with them and was very lucky enough to become sort of working on the trade side. So for the first few years of my working life in visitor attractions, I worked in trade marketing for Merlin Entertainments across the Sea Life Dungeons brands, and just fell in love with the sector. Absolutely, Merlin was a brilliant education for me. Didn't really know anything about visitor attractions or tourism at that stage, other than the fact that I love going on holiday. I just fell in love with the way attractions are and how they operate, and how much you're just dealing with people's fun time, leisure time. It is really about giving people great experiences. So I was with Merlin Entertainments for probably about 6-7 years, I think it was, based down in the head office in Poole. And then I moved into museums or science centres. So I went to work for a science centre called At Bristol in a Day, which is now We the Curious. And I went there as originally from marketing side, and ended up working right across in sort of commercial areas for that. And again, it was just brilliant. Back in Bristol, my hometown, really, really great products, great team, had fun there. And dealt with, they had 3 sites. There was the science centre side, which, getting hands-on experiences and getting kids involved with science was brilliant. We had, it's that stage, a nature attraction as well. And then an IMAX cinema, and IMAX films are the only way to watch films. Large format film is just brilliant, really immersive. And then, that sort of moved on from there. Always had fancied having a go at something myself. Never quite had the nerve to do it, if you like. And then I met my now business partner, Anthony Rawlins, through mutual contacts. And He already started a company, Digital Properties, back in those days, which was all about video marketing. And he was the person that sort of realized that there was a good opportunity for video marketing in tourism and sort of approached me. We started to work together. And I took the opportunity at that stage to go, do you know what, this is the right time for me to sort of break off and try doing our own thing. And so we set Digital Visitor up. And we only work in tourism. We have dabbled with a few things across time, as I think you do. But from my point of view, why would you move outside of this sector? I'm passionate about it. I absolutely love tourism, visitor attractions, and the whole side of it. So since we've been going, we've worked exclusively within the sector.
I love that. And now Digital Visitor is the UK's leading strategic digital marketing agency for travel, tourism, and hospitality. So you've done all right.
That's all right. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think when you're passionate about something, it becomes a lot easier, doesn't it? And as I say, we're still dealing with people's leisure time. We're able to work with a lot of great partners that deliver fantastic experiences, and it's our job to make sure we get those people to them to have those experiences. So, yeah, it still works really well.
Fabulous. And now look, it's been a tricky year. It's been, to say the least. But I kind of don't want to look back on this episode, because I think, we've talked quite a lot about how people have come through the pandemic and how people have been kind of supporting their clients through that. But what I really want to focus on today is what comes next, because we are now starting that run up to Christmas. And as we said earlier, your website has never been more important as it is now. And that's not just in terms of pre-booking, but that's in terms of retail and in terms of gifting as well. And what I'd like to share with our listeners today are things that they can take away and implement. So should we start with digital marketing strategies for Christmas, and what does that look like? And what can attractions be focusing on right now that is going to push them through to Christmas and really make the most of what they can achieve?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it was interesting of this period is that, the shift towards digital has just absolutely built momentum. It was obviously happening over the last few years. And when I started in marketing, obviously digital didn't even exist. So, to sort of now go to a stage where, for me, it becomes absolutely the most important thing that you do is quite bizarre to see the shift that's happened over the last few months. It's probably moved on what would have been 5-6 years, from that point of view. And what digital does is it gives you that complete immediacy to be able to look at things, what's working, what's not working, change your tactics straight away. It's completely agile and it's totally transparent. So you can really see what's working for you, what isn't working for you. Things that aren't working for you, you turn off. You don't need to wait for 3 months whilst the poster has to run its course in a place that you can actually change it straight away and really, really focus on those bits that will drive those revenue for you. And in terms of, we still don't know what the next few months are going to bring. We don't know if we're going to be open. We absolutely have no idea at the moment what's going to happen. But what we do know is Christmas isn't going away. It may be a different style of Christmas, but people will want to give gifts. They will want to, treat people to nice things that they can do. And I think the whole concept of experience gifting is just, absolutely an opportunity that visitor attractions should not miss out on. The experience gifting market has grown over the last few years, hugely anyway. And I just think this is going to really intensify that. If people can't see you, or they're not allowed to travel to have big families together at Christmas, sending the best possible thing you can do is an experience when people can go back out. And obviously from an attractions point of view, that's brilliant because you get the revenue now. It is a really difficult time. So if you can get your revenue in at this stage, and then the actual visit can happen at any point over the next 12 months or whenever it is, but really focusing in on driving that revenue from those ticket experiences is just a huge opportunity that people can't miss out on.
And that is something that was continuously talked about at the VAC when we both spoke at it, is that drive for memberships and selling the experience of something that you can't go to it now, but you can go to it in the future. And I think it was something like 23 to 25% increase in sales in memberships when actually attractions were locked down. So there was a huge spike in, there is a huge need for people, and a want and a desire for people to come back. So it's definitely something to focus on now. I mean, what about kind of looking at securing the revenue? So we've got reduced capacity at the moment in terms of visitor numbers. How does experience gifting help that?
From a point of view from the experience gifting, I mean, and actually you mentioned one thing there, Kelly, which is also very important, is memberships. If someone's buying a gift, for someone, the whole point of saying, here's a bit of clothes or something that you don't like, compared with giving a gift that is, going down a zip line at 100 miles an hour, or, visiting, some of the best experiences or attractions that you can go through. There's just no comparison in that you're giving people real experiences and potentially memories for life. So from that point of view, that's brilliant. And from the attraction side, I mean, obviously there's going to be a big push in the build up to Christmas for people looking to secure these presents, and the revenue goes into the attractions at that time. So if you're going to be closed over, the next few months, there's a great opportunity to drive a load of cash into your business. Now, some people may not, you may account for that once the visit actually happened, but whatever happens is you're building up a cash reserve there, which can help to some degree. When obviously then people do come and visit at a later point, you'll get secondary spend from them. There'll be other opportunities to get even further revenue from those people. The shops, we know people are buying more in visitor attraction shops when they go through, obviously from a catering point of view as well. And even better, rather than selling just a one-off ticket, if you've sold them a membership, as a gift, as someone's giving a membership, you're going to get that visit time and time again. And over the next few months, you're going into, probably 6 months through next year, I think local visits are going to be hugely important. People aren't going to be looking to travel as far. They don't know what the long-term plans, if we're going to go into a lockdown again. So keeping local and experiencing things on their doorstep is going to become an even bigger part of what they want to do. Finally, just on that, once you've got their details, if someone's bought from you, there is always the opportunity to constantly contact them, go back to those people and, potentially upsell, get more commitment from them. You've got a direct line. And okay, even if someone's buying a gift for someone else, you never know, you might encourage them to want to do it as well. Or even just adding value to the package that they've already bought. There's no reason to sort of say, a few weeks later, they might want to add something else to that if you can get them. So it opens up a whole new load, and that's just on the ticket sides, but it really does open up a whole load of opportunities to drive that revenue.
It's interesting what you said about, I've always very much myself been someone that will buy people gifts that have a longevity to them, and a membership or something like that, or an experience feels right. It feels more exciting than just, I don't know, something that's going to get used and then you throw it away. I'm thinking about my parents don't listen to this podcast, but I'm going to get them a National Trust membership this year because they live about 45 minutes away from where we are. They've stayed very, very local to their area. They live in a market town in Essex. They haven't really been outside of that town that much. They've come to visit us a couple of times when they were able to. But I think that gift will give them, that it will expand their area slightly, and they can still go to places that are outside that they feel more comfortable with. So hopefully they'll appreciate that I've thought this through for them this year.
It'll be just your luck that this will be the one time they do listen to the podcast as well. So I did want to change it.
Oh God, I hope not. But I mean, what you talked about, locality, is really interesting as well, isn't it? And that local audiences are even more important than ever now.
People haven't wanted to travel very far. So if they've been going out and doing things, they've been staying in their local market. And there's a lot of evidence to show that people are going back to sites and places that they know. If in terms of they've got the confidence, they know the site, they know how they're going to get there, they know what's going to happen when they're on site itself, and it just gives them that confidence to take that step if they're if it's something they've been unsure of previously. That's definitely not going to change over the short term. I know from my point of view, I've explored more in the local area in Bristol over the last few months than I just I've just discovered places I didn't even know existed. And when you're about 500 years old, like I am, you just don't think you're going to come across new things. So the opportunity to get people, doing more locally and supporting their local attractions and their local businesses, it's just, hugely important. And I think people are willing to spend money locally now, when previously they would have gone further afield, to actually have those experiences. They just wouldn't have thought about going locally, whereas now they will. It does translate very much into, if you're thinking about Christmas, we talk about experience gifting as being, obviously a key opportunity for that, giving the experiences there. But, many attractions have got fantastic products and fantastic shops. So it's not only that, but they very much need to be thinking about themselves as, a retail business in the build up to it. What have they got? What products do they have that will sell? Now, I'm not saying compete against an Amazon or the big boys. So you need to think really closely about what branded products there, what the added value that you get from your brand. What can people see? What will they value to it? Niche things that they do. I say I was worked for We the Curious before. You see places like obviously the Science Museum and stuff like they have amazing science experiments and things that you can buy. So how about, just focusing in on those really niche areas that you can then give people great fun to have at home, which is extending your brand and obviously securing the sale from your point of view as well. And from that science experience, as just as an example, what about if it was almost, an annual membership where you could say, right, well, you get a different experiment a month or something along those lines. So just very much thinking about, all right, we've got great products, how do you sell them? And it's about competing in that marketplace as well, but with the right things, not trying to compete where you're going to be massively undercut or you're not going to be able to compete with the marketing spend.
I love that, and it makes it really personalised to that attraction as well, doesn't it? We had a really good chat with Paul Griffiths a couple of weeks ago from Painshill Park, and he talked about how during lockdown they actually went out and they sold the wine and the gin that is produced from the vineyards that are at the park. And I was like, that's fantastic. So that really makes that gift very personal to that venue. And it's something that nobody else can sell as well. So I think that's so important to concentrate on. What about, how do we get people to the attractions? And if attractions need to focus on not just ticket sales from a digital perspective, but also retail and gifting, how do you get them there? What channels do you use?
Well, I mean, from the point of view of conversion, obviously this goes back to the session, Kelly, that, the website's the most important thing in terms of driving that conversion there. Making sure you've got really simple, easy conversion process going through to once you get people to the site is absolutely imperative from there. But in terms of driving people in, there's the obvious channels that we almost look at it into three separate areas. There's what we call converting intent. So converting intent is really encouraging those people who are already looking for something. So they might be looking for you from a brand name, or they might be looking for something to do around what you do, or they might be looking for something to do in a location, but they are actively searching for something to do. And there's two ways of reaching those people. One is obviously from an SEO point of view, making sure that you're doing really well from that organic searching, the right phrases, the right areas, making sure you're ranking really well for those. And then there's the paid search, really focusing on the conversions, driving through those conversions. And it is definitely worth, paid search, going through to the site and making sure that you are, putting money into those areas, because it definitely does show a return. So from that point of view, there's converting that. And also for those attractions that are charitable attractions, so like many of the people that we deal with, I'm sure most people are looking at this, but there's the Google Ads grant, and Google Ads grant, gives you a good amount, $10,000 a month in terms of supporting your marketing activity online. And it gives you a really good opportunity to use that spend that Google has provided to drive that traffic through to your website. So, that it gives you another great opportunity from there. In terms of inspiration, digital's great to be able to use great content, great video, great visuals. Social media obviously provides, huge amount of opportunity in terms of putting the right message in front of the right audience. We can target by so many different things these days that you can really, really show that you're getting the right people to see the content and then to click through and get back to your site. The cost per clicks from social a lot lower. We find some really good value from driving people through. But it's not always been, previously I would say, not always been the best of converting channels. That's changed. People are very used to clicking through and buying, from those social routes now. And all of that feeds into then the retargeting. Obviously, Kelly, you guys do great websites. It's about making sure that when you got them to the site, you've got the right tracking in place then, so that if they don't buy that time, you can continue that message to them. They're interested, they've been through to the site, get your retargeting correct, and then you can drive them back in terms of driving those sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the plug on the websites as well. I think what I really like about when you and Anthony speak, and I've seen both of you speak now a number of times, is that you look at things from a very kind of holistic approach. So it's not always just one channel that you're talking about, or digital actually. What about other channels that we can consider? So, what about things like audio and TV, for example? Is that a bit of a far cry for attractions right now, or is that something they should be or could be focusing on?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really important part of it. You think back to traditional TV advertising, I would have said probably was way outside of most people's capabilities, or budgets, or not capabilities. But when you had just a few channels to choose from, the amount of money that you needed to invest in it hard from a point of view of a return. But again, digital in these areas really does help. If you look at something like Sky AdSmart, for example, the targeting, it gives you the option of the TV advertising, but overlay that with the absolute brilliant targeting you get through social, and it really does give the opportunity to hit the right people. 8 houses watching the same program in a street can all be delivered a different ad based on their traits, what they watch, what their habits are. So you can really make sure, again, that you're getting the right message in front of the right people. Audio, I spend all my life on, listening to podcasts now. I walk in and out of work every day. It's a great way to sort of relax after a day's work. And you can put specific adverts, or you can put specific content on front of, obviously, the right podcast. So, again, if somebody's listening to a podcast about football or about wartime history, whatever, if you then get a message to them that you're getting a really niche audience who you can pretty much guarantee are going to be interested in what you have to offer. Yeah, I think it's going to be really hard for a lot of out of home over the coming few months. You're seeing the pictures of what's going on in London. There's not a lot of people in central London at the moment, yet that from tube advertising, TfL, that used to be a really, really important part of the way attractions would think of communicating with audiences that were in those areas. But it does now need to be shifted and go, the audience isn't there, so you need to go where the audience is. Outside of just that, you've got things like influencers, the whole idea of bloggers and influencers and people these days that can have a big say on what people do. That's massive. And make sure that you're embracing that. Look at who your local influencers are. What are the influences in the space that you're looking at? Engage with them. Yeah, okay, some of them might need to be paid to do it. But if they have the right audience, they have an engaged audience. And actually, in terms of engagement side, what they call the sort of the smaller influencers who have much better audience in terms of getting reactions and engagement from. So it really does work well from that point of view. And another one I'm always keen on is partnerships. I've spent a big part of my career sort of talking to people that partnerships are a great way to work, and it doesn't have to be in your sector. For example, you mentioned Natural Trust there. You might go for someone like a Berghaus or something like that, where they've got very, very similar audience demographics and their interests, are the same opportunity. So if you can forge a partnership and you can work together to benefit both audiences, then that's great, because it's just extending up a whole new set of people that you can talk to.
On the topic of partnerships, actually, I was thinking about this in terms of Christmas. A lot of the attractions that we're speaking to are doing different Christmas events than would usually have been planned, just because of social distancing, logistics, demand, capacity, etc. How about would you ever recommend attractions kind of partnering up with another local attraction to do, you buy a ticket for this one, you get a ticket for this one as well, or doing a joint package, something like that?
Yeah, it's something I've actually always thought it's a really good idea. And when I was based in Bristol, working in the Science Centre there, we would partner with all the other attractions there and do joint ticketing and joint sales where you could. Or sometimes joint ticketing can be difficult depending on the ticketing systems and what's allowed, but certainly cross promotion, you're not, for something like that, you're not really competing, for people are going to do many things over the course of a year, particularly if they're concentrating on staying local. So the more that you can look to work together and the more that you can benefit each other, particularly in these difficult times, is absolutely something I would work towards. And the other thing from a partnerships point of view, maybe not so much with the attractions, but if you can, we've done some great data capture campaigns with when we've been using, say, a major retail brand that has a huge audience. And if we can engage with that audience, get them back in to run a competition with a visitor attraction, then you can capture that data. And as long as it's GDPR compliant, you can then have an ongoing communication with those people for however you want to then. And that can be a really, really effective way of building that proper communication channel with people.
So that's a really great idea, especially in the run up now to Christmas. We're coming towards the end of the podcast. I've got a couple more questions for you, but what would you, if you could sum up the top 3 things that attractions should be focusing on right now while we're in that run up to Christmas, what are those top 3 things, Simon?
Definitely from a point of view of, I get the basics right. What things can you sell? So have you got a voucher to start with? Make sure you've got that, and then do the simple steps to get people into buying that voucher. So make sure you've got your paid search and your organic search strong, get people into the site, use social media to inspire people to get to the site, and then get your retargeting right so that you can convert that audience. That's probably 4 actually, but there are many others that could go through, but I think, look, start with that. And if attractions are, further down the line, then there's a lot more they can think about digital, the audio, TV, what other products that they can sell. So I think it's very much thinking about their own situation. How far down the road are they? And even, what events have they got coming up? Sorry, I'm just going off on a bit of a tangent here, but now I remember there was, again, at VAC, I think it was Sue Briggs from RHS was talking about the shows that they'd run through the summer that obviously are normally incredibly important for them, and they were doing the online versions of those, and people were paying to see and enter the shows from that point of view. There are so many attractions that do fantastic events over this time, light shows. Longleat down by us do great ones. I know Edinburgh Zoo do fantastic. There's so many there. So it's a case of, all right, if we're not going to be able to get the volume through, how else can I monetize this? What else can I do to give people that little bit of value that's kind of going to encourage them to come along, and actually, or it's not to come along, but to participate on this online. You're not going to stop the audience that wants to come locally, because we can reduce capacity. We're still going to be able to get those people through. But actually, how can you just get little bits of revenue from other people to help the pot of money build up over this difficult time?
Brilliant. Thank you. Super advice as always, Simon. We're going to put all of Simon's details in the show notes, but where's the best place that our listeners can find you, Simon, if they want to book a call with you to discuss any of these things?
Okay, well, I think probably the best things would go to our website, which is www.digitalvisitor.com, and my details are on there, and they can come through too from that point of view. But thank you.
Fab. We will put all of that in the show notes. We always like to end the podcast by asking our guests about a book. So we'd like to know what book that you'd recommend that's maybe helped shape your career, or just a book that you really love that you'd recommend that our listeners could pick up and read.
Kelly, sorry, I'm going to have 2 because I know. I know, I'm sorry.
Budget out the window again.
I know. Okay, from a personal point of view, I love John Steinbeck. I love the books that, things like, I'll give one just so you don't have to do too many, but I think Cannery Row is absolutely brilliant. I love the area that's, the whole sort of area around California, and I've been traveling around there, and it's so atmospheric. They give a really good insight to what the area was like in the times, and he obviously did Of Mice and Men as well, which I'll go with Cannery Row, don't worry, not both. So Steinbeck's great, and I think any of the books by John Steinbeck are really engaging. From a business point of view, it's interesting. Over the last few years, I've got more into reading business books, particularly using Audible, walking in and out of work. And I think one of the hardest things I've always had in business is dealing with difficult problems. So if you've got, particularly from a staff point of view, if you've got a difficult situation, it's very hard to deal with that. It can be very easy to bury your head in the sand and just let things go, but it always, majority of the time, that always gets worse. So a little while back, there was a book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor, and I found that really helpful in terms of how to approach that and actually what the benefits of it were, and just the structures and the ways that you can do, proper constructive conversations and feedback with people to actually help everybody in that. So yeah, Radical Candor was something that opened my eyes into a slightly different way of doing things. So I think that's what I'd recommend.
That is a great book choice. I have read that book sitting on my bookshelf upstairs, and it is really great, actually. She's Well, it's been an absolute delight to have you on the podcast today, Simon. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of your insight. As we said, all of Simon's details are going to be in the show notes. And so I would highly recommend, if you are not fixed for Christmas already, book a call. And I'm sure that Digital Visitor can help you out. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Kelly.
Thanks for listening to Skip the Queue. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find us. And remember to follow us on Twitter for your chance to win the books that have been mentioned. Skip the Queue is brought to you by Rubber Cheese, a digital agency that builds remarkable systems and websites for attractions that helps them increase their visitor numbers. You can find show notes and transcriptions from this episode and more over on our website, rubbercheese.com/podcast.